It's Jake Ciely.
And there's a surprise in your cereal box.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
You know what? You just made the list!
Hooray! People are paying attention to me.
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
What is up, you dogs? And what is up with NFL free agency this year? It is All in Football on FTN Fantasy, FTN Network. Reminder, what's the code now, Meaney? Because I don't know, the All In is gone. What's the code for the discount now?
All in is gone. We're running FTN hoops. I would say by the time maybe people watch this, if they're watching maybe some more, we'll have FTN March in the excitement of March Madness for 35% off. So FTN March, so we'll go with that one, 35% off.
Just because Jay tuned into the show and also because his Dookies are over 2 this year. Go Heels. So there you go. You got that on top of it.
I see that. There it is.
There you go. Barkley's new name, Tank, because Texans fan. You got the hat on. It just works. I'm going to start calling her Tank. Although that kind of feels like more of the full pit bull size. Like that. I mean, like the real, like, because she's half pit. She's not the big, thick ones that, like, you know, the legs are this big. That feels like a tank. I can't call her Nico. I can't, like, Stroud. No. Like, there's not, I got to figure something out over here. Maybe Mixon, as we're going to talk about this. Like, hey, free agency hit and running backs went insane. This is I don't know. It's just the salary cap. And now you can get it. But it's not even that much money. I mean, Barkley got the most, and it kind of averages out to about 12 per year. Your boy, DeAndre Swift, is on a new team, 8 per year. You got the 10 to 11 range. Derrick Henry's deal, that's actually breaking right before we came on, so good timing with that. Comes out to somewhere between 10 and 12. And that's the thing, like, even Josh Jacobs is it's not a true glorified 1-year deal, but a lot of them, if you break down, too, they are like 1.5 year-ish. So, point being, nobody was expecting, even with the money being out there now, this much movement on the running back market. Basically, running backs and offensive linemen. Yesterday was your day.
I saw Breece Hall tweet about offensive linemen. You know, it's great to see, actually, because this time last year, all we were talking about is when is Ekeler going to play or get paid? Is he going to hold out? Is Jacobs going to hold out? Is Pollard and Saquon, all these guys getting franchise tagged? I think it has, like, it's not obviously CMC money, like you said, for Saquon and Jacobs. It's not like the 16 per year, but how much do you think it has to do with just the draft? Like, maybe not a lot of
draft class.
Weak draft class. Like, let's get our backs. Last year, the guys that were signed was like Montgomery, Miles Sanders, but there were good backs in the draft, right? We saw Gibbs and Robinson go in the first round, and other guys, you know, get drafted shortly after. So I think that kind of plays into it as well.
I think that's a big part of it. It is weak. That's the funny thing is I said this. I did Mayo show last night briefly, and I tweeted it out about a week ago where I said, look, good news for the running back draft or for the free agents because the draft class is the weakest it's been in years. You're probably not going to see, I would say, one in the second round. Maybe Benson in the second round. I think, of course, with everything with the injury in the situation, you probably might have seen Brooks maybe even early second. But I want to actually be shocked if nobody gets drafted until third. I mean, we're talking about Corum, and everybody's already tying Corum to the situation with Harbaugh, and which we're going to talk about that signing too. But there's some ties there. I think when you're talking about the free agency, Henry was the obvious one, and going to the Ravens kind of tied that. Last night I was kind of tweeting that out. I was like, what happens if Henry doesn't sign with the Ravens? Like, then he's gonna be just sitting there, be like, where am I gonna go now? But all that being said, the big ones: Jacobs to Green Bay, Jones released, Jones goes to the Vikings, Barkley to your Eagles, Swift is gone. He was the first one out of the gate. Actually, went to the Bears. Pollard to Tennessee, Ekeler to Washington, Singletary to the Giants. As I can't even say that out. Mixon got traded, not released, after the signing of Zach Moss. So Zach Moss. And then Edwards to the Chargers, as I kind of alluded to before, and Gibson to the Patriots. But since it just happened, let's start with Henry. Henry's the most recent one. Probably not the biggest. The biggest is Barkley, which we'll talk about. But, you know, I tweeted this out, and of course people immediately, part of it was tongue-in-cheek. It was like 20 touchdowns incoming. Like, he's already had 17 rushing before. And it's partly tongue-in-cheek. But, I mean, we're talking about Jamal Williams was around that range on the Lions. You're telling me Henry, who's double-digit rushing touchdowns every single year. Gus Edwards just ran for
Right.
13 on 198 carries. Let's be clear about that. I'm not saying 20. What I'm saying is this. Is there any doubt in your mind? Because there's not, for me, Meaney. If it wasn't the Ravens, we'd have a whole different discussion. But because he's on the Ravens, Henry's back to he is a top 10 running back again.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was 2 landing spots, and this is where I wanted to see him go. Obviously, selfishly, as somebody who cheers for a team inside the NFC East, I didn't want to see him go to Dallas, but I thought that'd be a good environment for him too. I mean, you said it, man. Gus Edwards getting double-digit touchdowns, 13. And think about J.K. Dobbins near the end of his rookie season. Like, he was a touchdown per game guy in that offense, like 7 or the final 7 or 8 games. And with Gus Edwards, there were times where, maybe we'll just give it to Justice Hill, or maybe we'll just give it to somebody else in this offense. There's going to be no question of who gets the ball in the backfield when they're near the goal line. The only question will be, like, is Lamar going to steal a couple or two? And that may happen, but I agree.
He had
man.
5 last year. It's not like
five.
Lamar's not Josh Allen.
No, not at all.
Or
I
even
agree.
Cam Newton.
And when you have a guy like Henry and you're near the 5, you don't need to have Lamar.
Yeah, why are you going to get
risking
Lamar
his
killed?
body. Yeah, exactly.
But
So you just
is there an
can't-
argument? It's only 5, so it's going to kind of sound crazy to argue against something that I was using as a counter argument for why Henry's not concerned rushing touchdown wise. Do I need to put the math board up there for that? Because that was very convoluted to get to my point of being of like, I was just pushing against the whole Lamar only had 5. But
Right.
is there an argument that even some rushing in general, like, are you concerned at all that they pull off Lamar by bringing in Derrick Henry because he is such a beast and that, like, we can keep Lamar healthy?
I think maybe there's some talk with that, like in short yardage situations in the past when maybe it was 3rd and 1 and Lamar just keeps the ball and does what he does. But now there's no need of it. Like, you have one of the best short yardage backs in the NFL. He still has a lot to offer.
For fantasy
it's always going to
purposes.
be in his nature. Like, it's going to be in Lamar's nature to run, but I don't think there's going to be a ton of him 3rd and 1 stuff that we saw last year.
But still, I mean, it's at least for fantasy purposes only.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes wasn't even a top 10 quarterback last year on points per game. Let me make that clear. Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson? Who would you draft first? You can pick either one.
I would still go Lamar Jackson. He is
Okay.
the frog. Mahomes for me.
Okay. In running back, I would take Derrick Henry over both of these names if I'm drafting today. Do you agree, basically? Travis Etienne?
Yes.
Is it? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Devon Etienne?
Yes.
Okay. Can we keep going? Like Ken
You may be
Walker,
able to keep
Rashad
going.
White?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's.
those
You
guys.
know what? It's been a while, and I
All right.
was at AEW with Jay Felicio for Sting's last match. We actually got to see. I got to see not only Jericho, but the entire song. The first time we saw him at AEW, they cut it off halfway through. I was so mad. They cut off Judas. Like, I was so excited. I actually listened to that entire Fozzy album. It's a pretty good album. I was so excited for Judas, and they cut it off the first time. I got to actually see and sing along for the entire thing this time. So, because of Jericho, and because of what we can do with Derrick Henry, you know what we can do on this show, meaning to figure out what we're about to do with Derrick Henry is find a spot, right? How do we find a spot?
You're teeing me up for it. I thought maybe you would.
I mean, I could tee it up because I just saw Jericho.
Yeah, you should do it. There is a way. Why don't you tell the
There's a
people
way?
what we can do?
We can make a list!
There
you
it
go.
is.
There it
That's
is.
the one. That was pretty good
So-
too. Jiggles likes that one.
Thank you. Let's do this. McCaffrey. I'm just going to move on. McCaffrey. We're doing McCaffrey. Kyron Williams. Oh, maybe not. There's a Kyron Williams. I don't know how many times do I have to say this. I'll see. I do not get the Kyron Williams slide. Why does he continue week by week to fall down spots? Kyron Williams was in 2 or 3 with like Breece Hall ahead of Bijan Robinson. We could talk about Bijan. I would say let me put that as a sidebar. We're taking Bijan over Henry, right? We, as in both. I would take him. You would too, with no Arthur Smith.
I would.
Okay.
And I think that Kyron's going to fall like to roughly RB 8 or 9 with these new signings. I think he's going to,
Which is just insane. Like
yeah,
they
he's gonna be an
added
artist.
offensive line pieces or
Yeah.
a piece to help that offensive line, but it's like it's funny. He was already at like 2, 3, maybe 4. Nothing's like this is before free agency. Nothing's happening. Nothing.
Right.
And it's all of a sudden he falls behind Barkley, and then he falls behind Taylor, and then he falls behind ETN. It's like nothing has happened. This entire offseason, nothing has happened, and Kyron Williams keeps sliding down the list. So let's just talk about him real quick. Would you take Kyron Williams or would you take Derrick Henry? Because I think now this is a conversation. We're talking about Kyron Williams, who by all metrics that people want to throw out there, should not have done what he did. Like the biggest thing we're talking about him when he came out of the combine, and people are like, wow, you do all the RAC scores and all that type of stuff. Not that good. Buddy's with McVay. Buddy's with an offense that's going to give him the ball 20 times a game. We just saw what he can do with the ball 20 times a game, but can he stand up to an entire season of those touches? So if you are drafting Chris Meaney, your team, Derrick Henry or Kyron Williams?
I would go with Kyron Williams. I like just the fact that he's going to catch a bunch of balls out of the backfield. I just don't think that Henry will do that at all. I know he's had the uptick in the past couple of years with Tennessee, but I can't see him. It just doesn't seem like something that's going to happen in the Baltimore offense. And I would just say that the ceiling is probably higher with Derrick Henry. You're talking 20 touchdowns. I know tongue in cheek, but like Kyron Williams should get 20 to 25 opportunities
touches
a game.
Yeah,
with those catches, like 3 or 4 catches here and there, and would have him over Henry for me.
Well, to be fair, I'm going to throw this out real quick. 15 touchdowns in 12 games for Kyron Williams. And then last year, by the way, Derrick Henry still, by the way, total points, actually finished top 10. People don't even realize that. 12 touchdowns in 17 games. If I told you who's more likely to score 20 touchdowons, would you still say Derrick Henry now that he's on the Ravens?
I would. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tight, man. Like you said, he was a touchdown per game guy, but I think just in this offense, nobody runs the ball better or runs the ball more than Baltimore.
I mean, again, Gus Edwards, 13. Like that's all you need to know.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Go back to Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram, what, 12?
He had a great season
16
in that offense
combined? I think it was 16 combined, wasn't it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, so we're taking
score a touchdown a game, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Okay.
One a game.
Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry?
I'm going to go with Henry.
Are you?
Yeah. I think I'm
no Zach Moss.
Too much.
Jonathan Taylor, 20 touches a game.
And this is going to be a really good conversation because all of these guys are going to be right there in the same tier for me. But I'm going to go with Henry. Taylor is going to get more work, with in through the air, and there is some concern that I have, I guess, with Anthony Richardson maybe stealing a couple here and there. But I just got to go with Henry, man. He's such a beast in this offense. I think it's just a perfect fit.
Which, as an aside, we'll talk about that when we get to quarterbacks. It's going to be interesting to see where they go to back up Anthony Richardson now that Gardner Minshew is not there anymore. But anyway, Jahmyr Gibbs or Derrick Henry? By the way, I would go Taylor. But I would go Taylor, but just...
I think I'm going to go Henry. We're talking half.
I would go Henry over Gibbs. I think Gibbs right
Henry.
now is a great dynasty sell high because if you see a lot of rankings that are out there, the conversations on Twitter, you can kind of gauge. It seems like a lot of people have Gibbs inside the top 5. And, like, I love some Gibbs, but I also know who
Montgomery's
the Lions
not going
are.
Anywhere. That's the
exactly.
thing. Like, the backs that we're going to talk about here, they own the backfield. CMC, Henry, Kyron, Barkley, all these guys, Bijan Robinson, Taylor, it's their backfield. I love Gibbs. It's like everybody else. I know you do as well. But Dave Montgomery's not going anywhere.
No, Dynasty is a completely different story because Henry's about toast. But for 1 year and 1 year only, 2024. All right, let's bring him up. Let's talk about him. Your new running back. You saw my video yesterday. I just hope he remembers me. We might have to change the name of my dog. Although I still love the pun. I mean, that's part of the reason I did it. Yeah. And maybe I can just tell people now when they always assume it's Charles Barkley that, yeah, sure, Charles Barkley, huge Charles Barkley fan. Whatever. I'll have to watch him play golf. Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry? There's only one right answer, and you know what it is.
It's Saquon.
It is.
Yeah.
Is there a world where Saquon Barkley pushes Christian McCaffrey for the number 1 spot like he did his rookie season?
Yes, there is. And I'll tell you why. And it has nothing to do with Eagles stuff behind me. You're looking at some of the FTN numbers, and you see the 3.9 yards per carry last year, see 3.7 in 2021. But you know better than anybody the offensive line and the quarterback play. The running back position in Philadelphia may be the easiest job in sports. Besides the fact that you may get some goal line touches taken away from you, they were number 1 in run block win rate last season. Saquon Barkley got hit behind the line of scrimmage 46% of the time last season. 46% of the time was the 3rd highest rate among qualified backs. You know what the number was for DeAndre Swift last year? 27%, the best mark in football, the lowest rate among running backs. Miles Sanders and Swift both came top 5 in rushing in the last.
Let me put a
2
pause there. I want you to continue on this, but let me put a pause there.
Yeah.
How worried are you about Kelsey's retirement?
I am slightly, but they still have Mailata and Lane Johnson, who graded really well in terms of on the offensive line. So yes, there's going to be an adjustment period, certainly without your center in Jason Kelsey. But they drafted Juergens a couple of years ago. Kelsey handpicked Juergens. Like, they've been prepping for this for the past couple of seasons. So I think that the transition won't be extremely smooth, but it's still going to be one of the better offensive lines in football, especially on that left side. And I know people are talking about the squats and the thigh formation, they'll call it, instead of the brotherly shove with, Saquon and Jalen. There's still a lot there. And I don't think that Jalen's just going to take all those touchdowns like he has in the past, because very similar to what we talked about with Henry. Like, why would you give it to anybody else when you have Henry? Saquon is like, as you know, he can do it all, man. It's not handing it off to a little guy like Swift or Boston Scott or Kenneth Gainwell or Miles Sanders. So he's going to still get his touches inside the red zone. I'm excited for Kalen Moore. There's going to be some more quarterback design runs. The offense was very predictable last year. There's going to be some guys moving on the line of scrimmage, and he's just a true bell cow back. And there hasn't been many, like Swift had a great season last year, but he had a career low in terms of catches and targets, and they didn't really use him in the passing game. I think that they will use Saquon that way. And of course he can line up all over the field. So I think it's a really good environment for him. People got excited about Penny last year this time, and he didn't even touch the field. So
what was the point of that signing? I still don't know.
I don't know.
Still to this day.
It's amazing to me that the Eagles, they spent $5 million on 3 running backs and everybody applauded them. And then now they're like, well, wow, Howie doesn't spend, but they have the luxury to do this. They're still a contender. The O-line is good, and he was available to them. So, and he is a game changer. So the signing is right, I think.
Well, by the way, I actually jokingly said that on the Twitter X, whatever the hell thing yesterday. I was like, you know what? At this point, I'm just going to, if I'm a franchise in the NFL, find my quarterback and then just draft offensive linemen and nothing else. And then just do the rest in free agency. And somebody was like, congratulations, you're Howie Roseman.
Yeah, no. And this draft in particular, I mean, what are we going to see? 8, 9, 10 offensive linemen go in the first round? I think the record is 5, and it happened like 30, 40 years ago. So there's going to be a lot of offensive linemen. And again, Breece Hall tweeted it yesterday. Offensive linemen getting paid. And yeah, if you have an O-line and you dominate the line of scrimmage, you're going to have some success in the NFL.
So I'm making notes here. So we have CMC, Bijan, Kyron Williams. We disagree on Taylor. We agree on Barkley. So Barkley's top 3 question mark for you with the Eagles? That's what I put in the one thing that you left out.
Kyron.
Yeah. So the one thing that you is kind of looped into everything you said. So just last year, by the way, Swift, top 24 running backs, 20 fewer touches than Saquon, just by that change of pace option that they had with Gainwell and the rest, as you know, in that backfield. But Swift, 14 goal line attempts. Gainwell had 3. That's 17 between the two of them. Barkley had 8. So to that point as well, like
more than touches inside the red zone.
Yeah, and you include like not just goal line but goal to go too. You double it too. So if you actually go back to the 10-yard line, so you're talking about an offense that you're going to increase the touchdown opportunities, which Barkley hasn't had in forever. So we're 100% on Barkley. Here's one. Let's talk about him. We haven't talked about his signing yet. Josh Jacobs with the Packers. So Josh Jacobs initially signs, and they still have Aaron Jones, which at that time I was saying fringe RB1. Aaron Jones falls to like an Antonio Gibson type of role, but maybe a little bit better, but closer, kind of like maybe low-end RB2. But point being is like he's going to be a thorn in the side. Jones is too good not to get the ball. Well, that doesn't matter because Jones is gone. And we're going to talk about Jones too because Jones didn't go very far. He stayed within the division. He went right over to Minnesota. He could probably drive there. So the thing is Jacobs has the backfield to himself. The biggest argument for Jacobs has been volume because if you want to talk about on a per-touch basis, his efficiency isn't the best. Very similar to Joe Mixon, who we're also going to talk about because it's all running backs. But Josh Jacobs, with the volume that he's going to get on the Packers, and he's going to get some of the passing game work as he has been, do you go Derrick Henry? Or do you go Josh Jacobs? Josh Jacobs is coming off a disappointing season on a per-touch basis, but Does the passing game offset it? Does the Packers offense taking a huge step forward in the second half of the season with Jordan Love? Where are you going, Meaney? You're on the board. You have to make the decision. Who are you taking?
Wide receiver. I'm kidding.
I know you said. I was waiting for that at some point.
I think I would take Henry. It is like the difference between half point and PPR would be enough to sway me to Josh Jacobs. I was ready to come in here and say that Jacobs would be a top 5 back, and I'm pretty sure you would have said the same thing before this Henry news. I was going to say, like, I want him over Gibbs. I want him over Breece Hall.
I don't know if we can get him there. I think top 10, but like,
I'm not.
Well, so like, sure as an aside, CMC, Bijan, Kyron, Barkley, those definitively 4. Like, one more spot, and we even talked about, I'm saving Breece Hall. Haven't talked Breece Hall. Still had Taylor in the conversation we're arguing about. Like, there's not, you can't put more than 5 running backs inside the top 5. I'm not coming for you, but like the first thought I had was like, well, I guess Josh Jacobs could be top 5 again. I'm like, nah, actually, if you look at it more, he's 10.
He's
11?
more like 8, 9, or 10. Yeah. And he's going to be a real nice. I think he's going to be, for me, the way that I like to draft, be pretty happy with him as my RB1. Just if I'm on the back end of the draft or whatnot. Yeah, maybe middle part, round 2. But, I mean, you said it. The touch is the opportunity. You go back in the last 2 seasons, 19.1 rushing attempts per game and 3.2 catches per game over his last 3 seasons. At first, I was thinking, oh, wow, okay, this is a split backfield. Maybe they keep Jones and he's the goal line back there. But cutting Aaron Jones a couple hours later, they're just giving him the backfield. And, again, just using some of the FTN numbers, it's very similar to Jacobs, right? Or Saquon, rather, because they didn't have a capable quarterback and the run blocking wasn't good. This guy faced light boxes just 24% of the time last year. And that's why he had like 3 point whatever yards per carry, 45% in 2022 when they had a capable quarterback in Derek Carr. And then he had 4.5 yards per carry, the rushing crown, RB3 finish. And that wasn't even a good team. You mentioned Love. Love was great last year. Surprised the hell out of me. Got weapons across the board. LaFleur's a great play caller. I mean, I'd say he's top 3 or 4 in touches at least this season. So he's a good target outside the top 5. I like the landing spot. He's one of the biggest winners in free agency.
So in the end, which one are you taking? I'm still taking Henry.
I'm still taking Henry too. Yeah, I think Henry's
here's the difference of what I look at. Okay, well, and you talked about, and you bring up all those numbers, and I think it's valid. And it comes down to the touchdowns. I don't want to bank on touchdowns a lot of times, but in this case, I mean, if you just look at Derrick Henry, half point PPR. Last year was 13.2. That was his worst since his 3rd season, which in that 3rd season, he had 12 rushing touchdowns and 215 carries because he was still splitting some of his touches. It wasn't a full workload of the 300 carries. The 4 seasons before that, 18 per game, 22.3, 20.4, 19.4 because of those touchdowns and, 20, 30 receptions. You go to Josh Jacobs. Remember those numbers because Josh Jacobs, best season, 17.9. His best season is Derrick Henry's worst 4-year season. That's the crazy thing. And then outside of that, 14, 14.6, 13.5, and 12.7. So I actually think they'll finish very close this upcoming season because I would say that Jacobs would be closer to the 17 than he would be the 12. But I also think that Henry would be closer to the 17 than he will be the 22. But I would still take Henry. I still take Henry just because those monster numbers. And you're talking about the rushing per yards. I mean, we're talking about running backs as a collective are averaging over 5 yards per carry. Whoever, just throw name out. The Ravens running backs. By the way, for people talking about to go back to the 5 rushing touchdowns, it's not just that. Do you know how many running back carries there were for the Ravens last year? Just running back carries, like outside of wide receiver rushes and stuff like that. Just running backs only. What would be your... It's a huge
you
number.
You said 200 round Gus. It's got to be over 300 with everybody that they had.
It's close to 400. There's 383 carries to running backs last year with the Ravens.
Again,
383.
Ran more than this team. Neutral game script up over 53%. Like that's what they, even with Todd Monken coming in, like it's still what they do. And no disrespect to Gus Edwards, but you were getting a much better running back.
Even if Henry only gets 75% of those, and sure, the number will probably come down a little bit, but I mean, if he got 75% of those, he's almost at 300 carries just for that number.
I still think he has a lot to offer. I think you look at last year and you see, a down tick, not super efficient. Like that team was garbage. Tennessee was awful. They hardly crossed midfield, and they were down in a lot of games. So Spears got his his touches and opportunities in the second half of games. The O-line was trash. So yeah, he's in an amazing situation here, and I feel better about the landscape of the running back position early. Like I wasn't sold on a Chan or White or ETN as top 10 backs, but love the environment for Saquon.
Now we can kick ETN
Henry.
out, yeah.
Right? Kick those guys back, and you love still the young bucks like Kyron and Breece Hall and Bijan and
wrestlers.
Yeah.
No,
I don't know.
you don't know about wrestling.
But,
I know.
but yeah, there's a lot of appealing backs here now in drafts. I wonder if more of them pop into the first round now.
Well, so I think it'll be interesting after the draft. I think the draft is going to unfold like we might get one relevant that seems to be top 25. Like legitimately, I think, and whether it's Benson, whoever it might be, I think there may be one in the top 25 because you just look across the league right now. What's left? Who like teams that like could go in and you could be like, you know what? There's a good chance you could start as the lead running back from day one because we'll kind of loop it in here in a second. But last one, I saved them for last because I feel like, at least in my opinion, even with what happened last year and even with the questions on this team, and I was surprised that they waited to address the offensive line as long as they did, and they still barely addressed the offensive line as of right now. Even if you told me right now Aaron Rodgers doesn't play another snap, I'd still take Breece Hall at this point over Derrick Henry. So that's why I kind of left. Do we have to have a discussion? Is Breece Hall like even in this conversation? Like for what he did with that crap-tastical team last year?
It's true. Yeah, you bring up a good point. A lot of catches. I feel like we'll look back and say that was an outlier in terms of targets and catches because there was a lot of poor play, like dump-offs. But yeah, what he did with those quarterbacks and that offensive line, yeah, Breece Hall, he deserves to be a top 5 in the comment.
Okay, so
a lot of guys maybe knocking on the door
5,
for it, but
6,
I'd say so.
7. That checks in Henry at 8 for me and 7 for you. So there you go.
Yeah.
Which on a points total basis, he was 8th last year. Points per game, he falls outside the top 10. But that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. And you know who's not there anymore? Who wasn't there last year, and he's possibly, I don't think there again, is Austin Ekeler. That was fun while we knew him, and one of the best in the game. This time last year, and all the way up till August, actually all the way up till opening week, Meaney, top 3 off the board. Like, maybe 4th at worst at running back. Now, the question is he even top 20?
On this team, Washington? I mean, he's definitely an upgrade over Antonio Gibson, but he's not going to, I'd say he averages 8. I say let's give him 10 carries a game.
Okay.
I don't know. Is he going to get the goal line work? Not a lock at all.
No, I think so the comparison I made is I think it's Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, but without the Aaron Jones goal line situation.
Right.
I like less of it. I think that, and I'd say if you told me where I would peg him an over-under finish for next year, I'd throw out the number of like 19.5 at running back.
Yeah. I would say over. I'd say he's like a low-end RB2.
Finishes worse?
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, we all know that he still has a lot to offer, and he's explosive, and especially with the ball in his hands, he's dynamic. But Washington still has a lot of question marks. You're going to have an inexperienced quarterback. Is it Jaden Daniels? Is he running a lot? So, yeah, it's good that he got paid, rooting for him. We love Ekeler here. He's a big fantasy guy in the community. So, but I just don't love the spot, and I don't know. I know a lot of people are pouring one out for Brian Robinson Jr., but he's going to get a lot most of the goal line work.
Yeah, I think they're both RB2s, low ends. Yeah. Ekeler again, I still think he has the higher ceiling just in case. A lot was with the injury last year, and I like some Brian Robinson, but I think the interesting thing is I could see either one of them shaking out as the lead, as like a 65% lead, and then the other person's hurt a lot by it. But a few more, staying with running back, speaking of Antonio Gibson, now with the Patriots, he's just Antonio Gibson again. And this is just more of like Ramondre Stevenson.
You know what? He should just play wide receiver. He should just go back to playing wide receiver. What the heck,
well,
man?
I don't know. Did you see the rumors?
Well, I know they signed Kendrick Bourne.
Calvin Ridley's down to the Patriots or the Jaguars. Please don't go to the Patriots.
Yeah, like don't go to New England.
Although
Like,
if
why
he
would you
stays with
want to?
if he stays with the Jaguars, what the hell did you sign Gabe Davis for? Which like
Yeah.
we
If
gotta
he went
finish
to
running
New
back
England, I
here.
suppose he could potentially be a target monster, which would be maybe it would be better for him from a fantasy standpoint. So it does seem like a lot going on there in Jacksonville. But I didn't like to see this Gibson signing, especially for a guy Ramondre. Like, oh my goodness, it's not like Gibson's going to steal goal line work from him or red zone touches, but he is a player through the air. I would like to see just use them both, get them both on the field, line them up wide.
Hey, new regime, new situation. We don't know who the quarterback is as of today. Right now, with its potential holdover or bridge quarterback situation, it might just be they go from day one. I jokingly said it because the Patriots are the Patriots. Watch them trade down and still get Drake May because Drake. I have a feeling like with the stupid J.J. McCarthy nonsense, which we're going to talk about more in this offseason, but I feel like May, like I can just picture May and like the Brady Quinn, Aaron Rodgers, like the cameras on him, like why wasn't he taking 3? And now all of a sudden McCarthy leaps him, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, what happened? And I was like, watch the Patriots trade out of 3. Somebody takes McCarthy, and then like they still get him at like 11 or something like that. But anyway. All that being said, which you kind of alluded to with the Commanders, is I've been saying Jane Daniels for the entire time. Talent, but also when they brought in Kingsbury, the fit, and now with the signing of Mariota, again, you want your backup to be stylistically, schematically like your starter. Well,
absolutely. That's
not Drake May to Mariota. May would make sense if they were keeping Howell and just sticking with that. I mean, hell, they're both from UNC.
I think that's very telling, Jake, that when they brought in Mariota, I think it's a really
May is just basically slightly better Howell. Let's be honest. Like I know people are going to hate me for that take, but anyway, I feel like Howell's going to be traded. Which, by the way, hello Vikings. There's your answer if you want your fix. He's not Kirk Cousins, but I'll take Howell over your situation in a heartbeat.
Sam Darnold.
Like seriously, I saw people like, oh, this is because they're going to draft a quarterback next year. Like, why? Like, why are we going to waste a year? What's the answer potentially next year? You have Justin Jefferson. You're going to waste his. Like, don't be the Giants. This is why I stopped rooting for the Giants. Don't be the Giants. Don't waste Saquon Barkley's career. And then as a quick side, because this has nothing to do with fantasy, but yeah, congratulations on having a generational talent with Brian Burns. Now you're going to waste his career for 2 or 3 years because you're not Super Bowl ready this year. You're not Super Bowl ready next year, maybe 3 years from now. And now he's 29. Congratulations, Giants. You just did it all over again at defensive end / linebacker instead of running back. Anyway, that's why I don't care about the Giants. But to come full circle, back to the Vikings, Aaron Jones is there now. Aaron Jones, one of the better per-touch running backs, to take the opposite approach from the Jacobs situation. And Joe Mixon, who we still have to talk about, but hasn't been able to stay healthy, but has been very productive. But now he goes to the Vikings, which, again, no quarterback. Well, they have a quarterback, but it's Sam Darnold.
Not a good one.
And Ty Chandler will be mixed in. So where do you put Aaron Jones? Top 20, 25, 30? Would you take Ekeler or Jones? Like, where is he in this whole conversation?
Yeah, I would take him over Ekeler. I think he'll live in the maybe 17 to 18 range for me. I haven't
I'm with you on that.
Worked it out just yet, but I would say kind of not a completely low in RB2, but a middle of the pack. I mean, the O-line stinks. We know that. That was part of, I think, what Madison struggled last year as well. The quarterback play is very important to me. You got to have a guy to move the ball, especially with these offensive weapons. Kevin O'Connell is a great play caller. He should be the goal line back there. Aaron Jones, I mean, I think he only has like 8 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 years, but he should get them over Ty Chandler. And he should get a lot of touches, man. He was good last year in the second half when he was healthy, but there have been some injury issues with him. I think the spot's okay. Definitely an opportunity for him to, I would say, rack up 25 plus, 250 plus touches. Like he should catch... Man, if Cousins was there, I'd be all over this. Like he would catch like 50 balls and I'd be excited about him. But I'm just, at this moment, I'm not super thrilled.
Okay, well then let's talk about your former lead running back who has been replaced by Barkley, but was the first one to leave anyway. Would you take Swift or would you take Jones? Because Swift going to the Bears, you gave him that money. He's going to be the lead. With the Bears, it's relative. So first of all, likely Caleb Williams, which... I'm still shocked at this whole Justin Fields situation. For what quarterbacks we're getting, look at what Russell Wilson brought in a trade, and all of a sudden we're talking like they might not even get a third. Talk about backing yourself into the corner. At least the Giants are stupid. At least they didn't do this because the Bears backed themselves back. So, like, if I'm the Bears at this point, It's almost kind of like, well, then I just keep Justin Fields. But now
I know.
They royally screwed themselves over with this whole situation.
They did. It's almost like you should hold him in case there's an injury, and then maybe you can get at least a second.
That was my argument to Mayo. Yeah, that was my argument to Mayo last night. Was to say, like, just hold him in potentially until week 1. Like, worst case scenario, week 1, you have a quarterback argument and fans are upset, but it's not about the fans. It's about the future of the franchise.
Right.
Like, there's no way I'm giving him up for a 4. I'm not even giving him straight up for 1/3. I'm just not doing it.
I agree.
Anyway, but Swift as the lead with Caleb Williams. We still have Khalil Herbert, who might now be relegated to just pure backup because they have Rashawn Johnson, who they like in the passing game. So where is Swift's value here? I feel like he's behind all of them? Yeah. This is just now a full-blown committee.
Yeah, I don't like this spot at all. I don't even like the signing for Chicago. I didn't think it was really necessary. We both like Herbert. I thought they have something in Rashawn Johnson as well. I know that they did this last year with Freeman and the 3 backs, and they got Homer as like a special teams guy. But I mean, Swift is coming off this season where he had 4.6 yards per carry behind what we already talked about earlier is one of the best offensive lines in football. Right. Touch career highs in games, carries, rushing yards, total yards, and still finishes RB23.
Oh, I thought you were going to throw it. Did you know this? People are surprised by this. It was also his worst season in points per game.
Yeah.
It was actually his lowest fantasy points per game season.
Because he didn't do anything through the air. He racked up 156 catches and 1,200 receiving yards in his first 3 seasons in Detroit, but he had career lows in terms of targets, catches, and yards with the Eagles. He caught 39 passes, but they were only for 214 yards. He just wasn't used that way. So I think that's why. He only had 5 touchdowns. I get it. He was, with tush-push BS, like he was taking it, but he still wasn't a great goal line back anyways. Like he lost that job to Jamal Williams 2 years ago. He's not going to be the goal line back in Chicago. I don't think that he is. He's not that type of running back.
No.
And now they have Roschon, who kind of is somebody I would just lean on as a goal line back maybe.
I was going to say, what if it's not even Herbert? Like, what if it's just full-blown, Swift is 200 carries, barely any receptions, Rashawn Johnson's third down pass catcher, and then Khalil Herbert's the slamming into the end zone. But
a mess. It's a mess. I asked Ratcliffe we had an FTN call yesterday, and I asked him if they were going to cut Herbert now, and he just looked at me like I had 5 heads. Like, why? Why would they do that? And it's like, okay, I get it. A lot of teams roll with these 3 backs, but you spend that kind of money after you drafted Roschon last year. Just didn't really add up the signing. I don't like it. I'm going to have him.
No, sir. I don't like it.
Again, if he's RB23 on the Eagles, when it was just him, really, for the most part,
I don't disagree.
How is he going to finish better this year? And is he even going to have that third down role? What if it's Roschon? Like you said, they like him in the third down role. So he's splitting time with all these other backs, no goal line work. Maybe third down back is he's going to be a fade for me.
You know what makes even less sense, in my opinion, is being a team that's not a running back away from competing and being a team with a running back that you go out and spend money to duplicate. And who am I talking about? Oh, it's the Titans who have Tajay Spears and just went out and said, okay, let's get older, more expensive Tajay Spears and sign Tony Pollard. Why? They duplicated their running back. If they signed Gus Edwards, I would have been like, cool, makes sense. If they waited for the draft and drafted Corum, I would have been like, cool, makes sense. Even Zach Moss, I would have been like, kind of makes sense. I do not get replicating Tajay Spears with Tony Pollard, who just proved what we thought was the concern, not necessarily what we thought and called it, but was the concern is, can he be a bell cow guy? The answer is definitively no. Also, Pollard dominated goal-to-go carries and touches in the NFL, was top 5. The touchdowns were way far off from that, barely gets into the end zone. And now you go to the Titans, who have half the opportunities that you had just with the Cowboys. I'm talking from a fantasy perspective. So Titans signing doesn't make sense to me. Pollard here doesn't make sense to me. Pollard and Spears, I think, are going to share some. Even if Spears only gets Dowdle's workload, it's still going to be a share. So all that's set up to say this: if you had to pick one, Pollard or Swift, I know the answer is wide receiver, but if you had to pick one, this is where I'm with you. Because, see, quick sidebar, this is why I always grab a running back in the first 2 rounds, maybe early third at worst, is because when people are having this conversation, Ekeler, Gibson, Pollard, Swift, I'm drafting my third and fourth wide receiver. I still get an early wide receiver, but I'm just also drafting wide receivers here because also a lot of times I have a second running back already. I avoid this group on purpose unless one of them slides. Like if Swift fell to the 8th, I'd be like, there's all upside here. There's no point in not taking him in the 8th. But these guys are going to be going in like the 5th round, the 6th round. I'm taking wide receivers. That's why this is where I'm you. I'm taking wide receivers all day long in the 5th, 6th round. So that being said, but now you're forced to choose. You're forced. Actually, I'll throw a third one in for you, Meaney.
Please.
Pollard, Swift, or Giants running back Devin Singletary.
You know what? I'll go Singletary. I'll go Singletary there. I mean, the other guys are better running backs, and I think they have higher ceilings, but I know that Singletary is going to get some touches. And I couldn't agree more with your Pollard take. Like, this was absolutely shocking to me. You're going to replace Derrick Henry, which is hard to replace anyways, with a back that's completely opposite and very similar to a back you already have. They're both explosive with the ball in their hands. They're both great pass-catching running backs. They both struggle in short yardage situations. This was absolutely puzzling to me. Like, did nobody else call Tony Pollard? And what is he thinking? Why does he want to go to Tennessee? Brutal offensive line. They're going to be playing.
Does somebody mistype Minnesota? Like at the time?
I just don't. I don't get it, man. 3 of 17 inside the 5 last season. 2 of 7 inside the 5 the year before. I can't even say with confidence he's going to be the goal line back. I would say that he is the lead. But this is just. This is not. I don't like it. Why? This is worse than the Swift one, I think, for me. But I would say Pollard over Swift because it's a little less crowded. If Herbert was to get cut, obviously that answer would be a little bit easier for us to make.
Yeah, that would help. That would help.
Singletary over the other guys.
All right, well, then let me throw one more into this.
Yeah, that's it.
Would you take Gus Edwards over any of them? Gus Edwards, in case people... This one kind of got lost in the shuffle, especially timing-wise when it was announced. Gus Edwards to the Chargers. We just saw... I brought up Gus Edwards, 13 touchdowns on 198 carries. They're going to run the ball probably 1,300 times a game because it's Greg Roman and Harbaugh. Like, this is insane. They're not done. They're not going to... well, man, I don't know. They're probably not. They're probably going to draft or have some type of competition because they're probably not going to be like Joshua... I don't know. Is Joshua Kelly's contract situation? But Kelly, Spiller, Edwards, whatever that mess back there is, it's going to be somebody else. That being said, would you take Edwards? Because you know Edwards isn't going to do anything in the passing game. Like just,
nothing. That's why
they're not probably going to do much in the passing game. So, like...
Poor Herbert. Everyone wanted Herbert to be unleashed last year.
Not me.
More unleashed deep.
You know this. Herbert was in the Hall of Fame after his second season. Like, people are like, you know what Herbert is? He's new Carson Wentz.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I'm
just going to let that sit for a second. You remember Carson Wentz after that year?
Of course.
Top 5 quarterback. Carson Wentz going to be one of the best to ever play.
Of course. And it was just downhill ever since he blew out his knee. I would rather have today Gus Edwards
than all three.
I mean, I again, this is not talent. This is a situation, and play calling is everything. You go from John to Jim and back with Rosen, like he was. These guys are very familiar with each other in Baltimore, right? And they obviously like him. They feel like, hey, let's get him on the cheap. He's a guy we can give the ball to a ton, ground and pound, short yardage guy, downhill runner. So as of today, it looks like his backfield. I think they definitely draft somebody or bring some sort of pass-catching running back in on the cheap, but 250 carries, can he get to that? Can he get to double-digit touchdowns in this offense? That's low on RB2.
I mean, it is. So the last one before we get out of here, let's talk, or not out of here, but and then we're going to rapid fire because wide receivers are rapid fire. And then we have to talk about Kirk Cousins, and then we'll be done for today. But the Zach Moss to the Bengals situation with Joe Mixon heading to my Super Bowl winning Houston Texans in 2024-25 season. So who do you like more, Moss or Mixon? And why is it Mixon?
I like Mixon. Oh, you're rocking the hat. I was going to say, wow, I was just about to say better offense. Like, it just completely all of a sudden, like, whoa, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are pretty good too.
Better than last year's offense of the Bengals.
Yeah, no, they needed somebody like this, right? I mean, they got a lot out of Singletary. Good for him. They got a lot of cap space still. They can do some things, improve the offensive line.
Well, here, I'm going to throw one out to you.
A step forward.
Your boy Pacheco or Mixon if you're drafting today? Because I'd actually still take Pacheco. I think Mixon's volume mid to high RB2.
Yeah, I would still take Pacheco there as well. CEH,
Rashad White?
are free agents. Maybe McKinnon is that pass catching back for the Chargers. Rashad White, I would take over both of them.
Okay.
Just all those catches. Like,
Is Zach Moss a trap? Zach
Yes.
Moss. Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. People are getting
Chase Brown
crazy
all
over
day
Zach
long?
Moss. Yeah, Chase Brown's gonna get some touches, and man, Zach Moss, great. When he stepped in for Taylor, but you saw when he was given opportunity again, he wasn't fantastic. So I just don't think he can carry that over a full season.
It's honestly the injuries at this point too.
The injuries. I don't think he's going to be a big-time player through the air like Mixon was in this offense. I think Chase Brown deserves some touches. I think he's actually a really good third down back. So yeah, I will be fading Zach Moss everywhere. Unless he falls to the 8th or 9th round, then I'll be interested, but I don't think he will.
All right, so with the promised rapid fire, Gabe Davis with the Jaguars. If there is no Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver 3 from 2 years ago, if Calvin Ridley comes back, he's A. Jones. Agree?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to the Darnell Mooney situation, he's Gabe Davis. Very simple. Am I wrong in this situation with Kirk Cousins in Atlanta?
No, I tweeted last night that I thought, because there's a lot of similarities here, of course, with Kevin O'Connell coming from the Sean McVay coaching tree, and Zach Robinson's going to be the OC there, was with Raheem Morris and McVay. So I think the offense is going to be very similar. So I was thinking, all right, a lot of maybe some play action, middle of the field. Who's going to be the deep threat guy? Oh, they're going to draft a guy. They're going to draft somebody to get the deep threat guy. And then I see before we got on here that Darnell Mooney's going to be that guy. I'm a little bit disappointed. I thought I'd like to see them draft somebody else to go with London and Pitts, but
I'm doing it right now. I just tweeted right live on the show. I just tweeted Gabe Davis, Darnell Mooney with a Spider-Man gif. There you go. So before all this even started, Jerry Jeudy, hello Elijah Moore. Do you even really care about this situation? Yeah, because it's a two-person. I don't care about the third person because whether it's Watson is Cooper and kind of a collective of Njoku / Jeudy / Moore. There's no guarantee that Judy's just gonna throw Elijah Moore to the side like he's nothing. I mean, hopefully he does on the talent of what we know of them, but there's no guarantee. And Flacco, who's not going to come back there now because it's actually Jameis Winston. Even if it was Flacco, even if it was Jameis Winston, okay, what's the best case scenario? You're still going to be 3 because it's just going to flip and Njoku. It's a Njoku and Cooper.
That's it.
And then the rest. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
On a run-heavy team.
Exactly. When Chubb is back at full health, they're going to go back to being a run-heavy team. They were a pass-happy team when Flacco was under center and they didn't have their guy Chubb and Ford slowed down. So I'm not excited about Watson, but if you were a Watson truther and you had Watson in a dynasty, this is a slight uptick for him just to have another weapon in the offense. But I agree. It's Njoku and Cooper, and that's it for me.
Okay. And since I was busy last week talking to another Canadian, and Ryan George, in case you missed that, so Michael Pittman franchise, T. Higgins franchise. T. Higgins wants out in a trade. Pittman signed back. He's got Anthony Richardson, so he's a wide receiver too. Baker and Evans are back together, so Baker Mayfield irrelevant for real outside of super flex, but Mike Evans, top 15, potentially top 10 again. No reason to think that he's going to slow down in his usage right now. Maybe in 2 or 3 years we're concerned. Talked about Sam Darnold. Gardner Minshew, the Raiders, probably a nice little holdover. I think that's good, actually, for the Adams-Myers value.
Yes.
But as we get out of here, the big one, Zach Ertz to the Commanders. No, I'm kidding.
It's where are you going with this?
It is Kirk Cousins, which, by the way, at the end of this contract will have made $400 million. Kirk Cousins. Kudos to this guy. This career started being what the hell are they doing? Drafting a second quarterback after Robert Griffin, and then look what it's turned into. This is insane. So, Kirk Cousins. I got in a big debate with Mayo. So, if you want to go this way with it, so meaning I kind of put it to the side and I said, look, let's take the signing as in we're going in assuming he's okay for week 1. Obviously, we all know that there's a question if he's going to be 100%, if he's going to be ready for week 1 100%, if he's ever going to be the Kirk Cousins we used to know. We understand that's the risk. We understand that. And that's a whole other conversation, but people know how to handle that. If Kirk Cousins sucks, okay, we're just looking at the Falcons we saw last year because the quarterback situation kind of sucked. I was saying, like, I'm presenting this as in Kirk Cousins is the Vikings quarterback we knew because that's the only change anyway. Like, that's the only thing that changes for the Falcons. Mm-hmm. With that being said, are you with me on these two statements? Drake London, top 15 wide receiver. Kyle Pitts, top 5 tight end.
Yes. London maybe like 17, 18. It's tough when there's so many good guys, but
I could see London pushing the top 12. We're talking about Kirk Cousins here. Kirk Cousins, for everybody out there who has averaged over the last 4 seasons a top 10 finish. He actually has one season where he finished outside the top 10 in fantasy points per game as just a quarterback side of things. Almost 2 touchdowns per game throwing and 260 yards per game. This is so like just throwing these numbers out there, like the last 4 seasons, this is kind of insane how good he's been over the last 4 years because people don't respect it.
I know. He's averaging 29 passing touchdowns over his last 8 seasons in the NFL. 29. That's not including
go back
last
that
year,
far,
half the season. So he played 8 games last year, and he had 18 passing touchdowns. Do you know how many passing touchdowns the Atlanta Falcons had last year? Not 18.
14?
17.
Oh,
Close.
In
17 games, they averaged 1 passing touchdown a game. And again, going back to just being familiar in a new offense, right? With McVay and Robinson and Raheem Morris, these guys were under McVay. And Kevin O'Connell.
I'm looking at the Giants. How many of the Giants have? The Giants had 13.
Touchdowns? 13?
Oh, wait. I might be forgetting. So wait, there's DeVito, there's Taylor. Where's Daniel Jones? Did Daniel Jones even have any?
He might have a couple early on.
No, did he?
Not many.
Oh, yeah, 2 at the beginning of the season. Or so they had 15. He had more than the entire Giants too.
15. Well, yeah, and he played half the season.
And more than Bryce Young.
Of course. But yeah, under Kevin O'Connell last year, McVay tree, all that stuff. So it's going to be a very similar offense in the middle of the field. And most people, I think, are aware of this. But if you're just playing fantasy for the first time, or you played last year for the first time, and you drafted Pitts high, and you drafted Drake London, and you're like, oh man, these guys are just no good. Like, they have a ton of skill and a ton to offer. They just have had very bad quarterback play and play calling in particular in Atlanta with the running and the play action BS. So Kirk Cousins wheels up for everybody inside this offense besides Darnell Mooney, I think. But just having a field stretcher, somebody that could maybe take the top off that you can maybe pay attention to, will open up so many things for Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson. So I'm definitely in on this ATL offense.
ATL offense. He had 7 touchdowns himself, passing touchdowns more than 7 teams. 7.
Played half the season.
I know.
He doesn't have Justin Jefferson, but London is an alpha.
Before we get out of here, I gave you 3 of them. Well, not gave you, because you knew the Falcons, and then I said the Giants, and then, of course, I threw out Bryce Young. Do you want to try and guess before we get out of here the other 4?
Be another one. Tennessee.
Titans are 1. Yep.
Would the Raiders be 1?
No. Raiders up at 20.
Adams and Jacoby.
But close.
There. Carolina.
One of them, yeah, and then one of them has a new quarterback, which is the best.
Oh,
the best. Yes, that $1.2 million. There is zero downside for this deal, and it's a quarterback upgrade.
Best buy low of all time. All time. Mason Rudolph looks good in this offense down the stretch.
The Jets only had 11.
Oh wow! Yikes!
And then the Patriots was 16, of course. The Patriots new quarterbacks as well. We were originally going to do 2 shows this week, down to 1, possibly, most likely. Some other stuff happening, but also we covered who's left at this point. Calvin Ridley, we got to figure him out. Henry signed, so he's gone. Hollywood Brown, we'll be back next week most likely, unless something groundbreaking,
some
shocking,
sort of major trade like Higgins
or something like. We'll do like a quick hit. But
Yeah.
if not, follow Chris Meaney at Chris Meaney. Good hockey stuff going on. Stupid Rangers pulled the Bulls at the deadline. I'm pissed about hockey, so I just can't have nice things. Like the Go Texans, like I said. At All In Kid, at FTN Fantasy, and one more time, you said probably March is the new code?
FTN March. FTN March.
FTN March.
For tomorrow. Yeah, FTN March.
And there you go. Patrick Queen just signed a 3-year deal with the Steelers. So there you go. As we get out of here. Oh. You were hoping. I'm assuming your hope was the Eagles.
I knew they were linked to him, and I was thinking, how Baltimore is not going to get rid of this guy. They got to find a way to bring him. That's a great get for the Steelers, man. Good defense. Again, Russ doesn't have to do too much in this offense. Maybe he can I mean, he rejuvenated Sutton's career. Maybe he can do that with George Pickens. I don't know.
Maybe.
That's a good sign.
I
like Patrick.
I actually think Russell Wilson can turn George Pickens into a top 20 wide receiver. So there's hope for that,
Yeah,
too.
we'll leave on that note. That's a good one.
We'll leave on that note and enjoy the rest of your week. And we love you. Hugs from Nando.
Good news, everyone.
It's Jake Ciely.
And there's a surprise in your cereal box.